We are this morning gripped with spy fever. There is a book out called Client Confidential. There it is, a copy of it for those of you watching us this morning. Sean Hartnett is the author, and it's published by Merriam Press. And apparently this guy wrote a book before, which was about, he's an ex-spy, a spook up the north, working for the British Secret Security Services. And he wrote a book before that. This is the follow-up. Charlie 1 was the first book. The book that the British Ministry of Defence tried to ban. But it turns out after he left the British Army, he came back home to Ireland and has loads of stories about Anglo-Irish Bank and some other people who would have been working here. Stories about the Corrib pipeline. He spied on lots of people. Also has a story about working for the IRFU, the Irish Rugby Football Union. Around about 2007, 2008, there was, he claims, intense paranoia about leaks. There was a meeting where the top brass of the IRFU were meeting to discuss what would happen with the end of Eddie O'Sullivan and the start of Declan Kidney. And apparently everything appeared in the papers word for word almost, which Sean Hartnett in his book claims led the IRFU to go, what the hell's happening here? Is somebody listening to us? Is somebody in the room telling everybody? How is this making the papers? You know, could just be good old-fashioned journalism. That it could just been somebody, you know, with enough contacts saying, "Oh, I heard this. Oh, I heard this." You know, the way NFL insiders work now, where that's how stories get out. That could have just been old-fashioned journalism, but you know. And so he's written an entire chapter where he claims that he was engaged by the IRFU to analyse the quality of the work that was being done by the other company that was engaged by the IRFU to sweep for bugs and stuff. So there was big paranoia in World Rugby generally that conversations were being listened to. I don't know if you remember this, right? But there was like a massive conspiracy, one of the first proper sports internet conspiracy theories about the Lions Tour of the World Cup, about how England had these magic water bottles that Martin Johnson would push and speak into and get instructions from Clive Woodward. I don't know if you remember this, but there was footage that was doing the rounds of Martin Johnson pushing the water bottle and then speaking into the water bottle as the water went into his mouth. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Why is he speaking into the water bottle? And then the camera would cut to the crowd, and Clive Woodward would also at the same time be simultaneously speaking. So, look, you know, it looked a little bit weird, right? I'm not going to lie, it looked a little bit weird. So rugby, high-end spying and cricket and all that kind of stuff was a thing. So apparently the IRFU engaged a security company, and they were down in the Ballsbridge Hotel, or one of the hotels in Ballsbridge. I don't want to get the wrong one. And the guy went in with his device to beep, 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 and left after half an hour and went, oh, that's fine. And our guy, Sean Hartnett, the hero, is like looking at this because he's the consultant engaged to see if that crowd is any good. He's like, we call these guys the magician. They come in with their magic wands and leave, and it's completely nonsense. He didn't unscrew any of the power sockets. That guy was a spoofer. I was able to go in and say, well, you know, I worked for the British government in Northern Ireland, so therefore I'm like high-end, top quality, grade A, primo spy shit here. I know what I'm doing. And he was able to win a massive contract from the IRFU for a full review of their security services. He also managed to break into the IRFU's offices just to prove how easy it was for somebody to break into it, wander around unmolested by any of the staff who are working there, you know, gathering information like Paul O'Connell's salary, although he doesn't publish it. And so it's very exciting. This is like, you know, the IRFU obviously say this is not true. They start in the statement that they've given to the Irish Independent this morning. It is apparent the author of Client Confidential has fictionalised many elements in the account of the IRFU's engagement with RMI or Risk Management International, and has exercised extreme degrees of artistic licence in his portrayal of the processes undertaken. That means he definitely worked for you at some point. He was involved in this. It's like a bit of exaggeration. For the record, the IRFU has never retained the services of or worked with a Sean Hartnett. Sean Hartnett is obviously the guy's pseudonym. It's a made-up name. That's not his real name, because he's a British spy who would be killed if he was to reveal his identity. At least that's what he thinks. Maybe Sean Hartnett's his real name and it's a double bluff, but the IRFU never worked with a Sean Hartnett, so therefore there's no truth to this story whatsoever.
it's the worst pseudonym in history, Sean Hartnett. If you're going to pick a fake name, if you're involved with espionage, pick something more exotic than Sean Hartnett. But I guess it kind of leaves things more down to a realistic level. Apparently he's from Cork.
You're hiding in plain sight. That's what you're doing there.
True.
It's Kaiser Sose.
Yeah, like I think it's fairly track downable. Or more track downable.
You can't give yourself Kaiser Sose name. Like that's like, you know.
Like I would have gone for something more Latin-based or something like that. Just if you're going to pick a fake name, do it right. Sean Hartnett doesn't really do it for me. It's an extraordinary story, and I'm sure there's elements of it that are hammed up. But the IRFU, of course, stating that all of it is hammed up and that large elements of it are completely untrue. Now, I do kind of feel for the previous crowd who had gone in and tried to sweep that hotel room, because ultimately it was a conversation just recorded on a phone.
Yeah, he does say that, so he goes in and watches a few team meetings, and at the end of it, he gets really important information like the tactics that they're involved in and their drinking plans for that evening. Like, it is definitely, it has the bang of spoof of it, and yet at the same time there's a grain of truth. So that's the perfect story.
So it all kind of comes about after the predicted sacking of Eddie O'Sullivan in 2007, and this is the big leak, and that Declan Kidney was waiting in the wings to actually come in, and Sean Hartnett takes it upon himself to actually kind of have a word with Declan Kidney when he gets the job, to say that not all his enemies were outside the walls of IRFU HQ, which is rather cryptic.
Well, that's interesting, because then that means Declan Kidney can verify that conversation happened.
Yeah, well, it's true. Like, but imagine being Declan Kidney in the corridors of power in the IRFU, and just this mysterious man comes up to you and says, "Not all your enemies are outside these walls." You're like, "Who the hell are you?" In
a weird Cork Nordy hybrid accent.
Yeah, exactly.
Sean.
It kind of seems like a bad Hardy Buck sketch or something like that, or an excellent one, really. And I do hope that it is all true, but unfortunately the RFU is saying it's fictionalized. This is a story we need right now. Also coming days after Joe Schmidt has said, and has voiced his unhappiness with Ireland teams being leaked early. I wonder, will Sean Hartnett be called upon to speak to certain journalists across the Irish print media to stop Aaron Gatland getting that real advantage next time? Yeah,
so he ends up concluding that the room hadn't been bugged after all that. There's a great bit where it's like, he talks about there was a bugging in 2015 or 2017 in remember the All Blacks found what was reported to be a listening device in Australia. Ultimately, the person who finds that was working for the company that the All Blacks had hired to protect them, and then he ends up getting found not guilty of any charges. So ultimately, no one knows what happened, but the security company whose job it was to find the bugging found the bugging thing, and so he's like making the point that, you know, it's really important when you're in security that you occasionally scare your customers into being repeat customers. So he's kind of like, I didn't find any bugging device in the Shelburne that time.
My theory in all of this is that Sean Hartnett may be a double agent, working on behalf of the RFU in the IRFU. So if the IRFU are, you know, hoping that their inside agent isn't working on behalf of the RFU, then perhaps, you know, British military agent is a bit of a giveaway, is it not? Then again, he could be representing Wales or Scotland as well. But maybe that's the case here. Maybe the real reason why our Six Nations was so poor this year was actually just a double bluff by Sean Hartnett, and he's actually just been feeding information the other way. He's gone to some length to really justify his credentials, and really the IRFU should have seen it coming when they have this guy Sean Hartnett showing up and asking for a martini shaken, not stirred.
They call it the long con. That's the ultra long con in this instance.
Well, if you're going to write two books based on it, then it's a double bluff, it's a triple bluff, it's a quadruple bluff at this point. So I like his dedication, but personally, if I'm in the IRFU and if I'm sitting down with Sean Hartnett this morning, I'm like, can I fully trust you? Because I'm sure he's done great work so far.